This is Guardian Radio 96.9 FM, Nassau, Bahamas.
The views and opinions of the hosts and guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect the position of the management and staff of Guardian Network. Ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Political Review. My name is Quincy Parker. I'm your host this afternoon. And as usual, today we will be having a fascinating conversation about the subject of the political directorate, the political landscape that is ours here in the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. This month, the Free National Movement will have a convention at which party officers will be elected. The slate of officers runs 40 plus, I believe, positions that are up for grabs. And the pleasure of chatting with one or two of the candidates so far today. We look forward to having a good conversation with the former president of the Bahamas Bar Association, the former member of parliament for Yamacraw, former minister of state for legal affairs, a good man, and I believe his last posting would have been as the Minister of Financial Services, and I know that he had worked incredibly hard in that post to boost our financial services and broaden our appeal to the world. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Political Review, Mr. Ellsworth Johnson.
Good afternoon, sir. How are you?
I am splendid. Thank you, Brother Johnson. Everything all right?
Everything's okay. A blessed Happy New Year to you and your family, sir. And thanks for having me.
Thank you, sir, and the same to you.
Yes.
Hopefully, we maintain the love and affection through the 10 questions, some of which are not easy to answer.
Yes.
The fact is that my interest in having this conversation is founded on the reality that the Free National Movement is the alternative government.
Yes.
It is, as your party would probably say, it's the government in waiting. And in my view, the role of the chairman of the political party has taken on a significant increase in public perception and importance. In the last administration, the Minister administration, the difficulties between the leader and the chairman played out in the general election campaign, and they played out in some other difficulties. And so I want to examine with you your ideas as to the role of the chairman of the party and some of the relationships and decision-making processes that will come with that role. And so I'm just going to jump right in. Our slogan is no lotion and no long talk. So
absolutely.
40,000 plus FNMs stayed at home on September 16th. If those numbers shake, how will you get them back?
Okay. First, Quincy, again, let me say thank you. And please allow me just to say this, I had a very interesting discussion about one of your colleagues, Shanique Miller.
Oh, okay, yes.
And the role of the fourth estate in protecting the constitutional democracy as we know it to be. And so I want to congratulate all persons in the media for the role that you do, and to continue to uphold the level of objectivity and impartiality required of such a lofty position, all ingrained under the freedom of expression and conscience, and don't allow anybody to bully you. You said that a number of persons were disaffectionate with the Free National Movement, and it resulted in the experience that we had September 2021. Listen, I've had a chat with a number of persons in the party. We're dealing with people. The party is about people. So it's about building trust at every level of the party. That people or individuals, voters, the young persons, the women, feel that the FNM or the Free National Movement is in its best interest. That it actually is concerned about the way people eat, their housing, where they sleep, the education of their children, infrastructure, the protection of women, all of those things that cause us to self-determine. And when persons lack that level of confidence in a party, as we have in our constitutional democracy, they normally go to the polls and they exercise, grateful to God that we exercise it in a peaceful way. I'm of the opinion that the Free National Movement is the best choice or the best entity to facilitate the full experience, or bring the full birth or experience to what Bahamians need and want. It would be remiss of me if I do not congratulate Mr. Michael Pintad, our new leader, who was elected just a short time ago, a party leader. And I want to say this because there's a big elephant in the room. No lotion, straight talk. That I'm a loyal man. I have no ambition to be leader or any alternate ambitions. And I think we have to get that clear. I would also like to congratulate 3 persons who were unchallenged as a nomination process closed on Friday. And that is Mr. Serpent Roll, who is now the new
Secretary General
of the party. Mr. Gregory Menace, who's the chaplain, who's done a phenomenal job. And Mr. Dwight Sawyer, who is our new treasurer. And he served for years under the umbrella of the party. So it's about people, Quincy. It's about how you cause persons not just to feel, but to know that they have a stake in their future and in the future of Bahamians yet unborn, and in the role of the party. And that the feeling that we have, or sometimes persons have, that only entitled or persons who think that they've arrived can be a part of the party or can lead the party. Whether you be in Inagua, North or South, Andros, Camp Road, Balls Alley, whatever have you, you can participate in one of the most phenomenal experience other than serving your God and your family. That is government, because sometimes you could leave your country, you understand me? And so this is serious business. As I always say to persons, I know that God has set up country and he's blessed governments. But in that process, in our constitution, it establishes a loyal opposition. And the role of that opposition is to check raw power, and that's how you selected an opposition. And what are those things that the opposition is intended to do when you look at the makeup of a country and you look at your constitution? Well, it says who will be the persons that would make up the community, and then it looks at the fundamental rights, how the rule of law is to be affected. And everything else in the constitution that governs our country is designed to facilitate proper honest opportunity for the individuals or citizens that find themselves in this country. And so the role of the opposition to check raw power and not to allow what that concept to be a reality in the Bahamas, where it says power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely. So I say to all members of the Free National Movement that, hey, yeah, we're in a position that we would not like to be in, but look at all the things that we've done. Look at the history of this party, from successor from when there was disaffection from the other persons. I don't want to call that the other group's name. When there was that disaffection, the dissident hate, all that occurred, the brutality. I heard Mr. Folks, one of our founding members, speaking about just tried to obliterate you. And so there comes the Free National Movement, infrastructural development, releasing the airwaves so that persons can give actuality to all of the things that we cherish in this country. But simply put, I don't care what it is, and I bring it down to this. And I had a conversation with Mr. Maurice Moore. He said to me, and I'm coming back to Freeport this weekend. He says, Ellsworth, remember that it's all about people. Politics is the way the nation's scarce resource is distributed among people and how you safeguard their interests. And nowhere we in the Bahamas believe in the Judeo-Christian principles. And the master says something that's very important, and it makes a whole lot of common sense. He says, you can't preach the gospel to anybody if they're hungry, they have nowhere to live, or they don't have the capacity to care for them. And we have to get back to where we care for people. So that all of the committees, I don't care what you talk about the committees, the financial committees or whatever have, the Women's Association, the youth group, those former leaders, former senators, and the persons that are in the trenches can feel comfortable that they actually matter. And that is where we have to get back to.
So I asked about how you're going to reach the 40,000 Aframs who didn't vote.
Yes.
And your response mainly focused on the party and restoring trust within the party.
Yes.
So I kind of have to ask as a follow-up question, how then did the party lose the people's trust, in your view?
But the party lost the people's, we had 4 tremendous experiences, Irma, Dorian, and the tragedy of COVID-19. And generally from speaking to persons, let's go to the family islands, they did not feel that the party cared enough to provide the resources or the infrastructural need that they want. There's this whole question of the quality of the respectful communications and this is something that obviously we will do a strategic analysis once we're finished to have persons vent. They didn't feel that there was respectful communication to hear their views as to what they thought was important to them. And then consultation, respectfully consulting with individuals, every member of the party, so that they feel or they know that they're a part of the process. Let me just say this about the COVID-19 experience, and to give you a good example. I was campaigning, and a young gentleman said to me, he was out of work, his wife was out of work, and there were children in the house. I know that you didn't bring COVID-19, but that doesn't change the fact that I have no light, no water, I'm not working, and I have no groceries. I don't expect you to provide them to me, but I want to feel as if you care about me. You understand what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And so, yes, Ellsworth Johnson, I know who you are, but I want to have that feeling that at least I know that you don't have a lot, I don't have a lot, but I want to know that you care, right? So that is in turn back to the party. And then in order to get them back to the party, they must feel and know that you have their best interests at heart. And this party, the party of Sir Cecil Wallace Whitfield, is prepared to fight for them, prepared to put up their dukes and go at it for all of those contract workers, for all of those persons who were on boards, for all of those persons who are being told that they will get no work, right? That somebody will go there and objectively confront these individuals. And so that the chairman of the Progressive Liberal Party doesn't feel comfortable on insulting women, that you would say that. And that the party would also check itself and look in the mirror and see where there is lack in terms of that care and that need for its membership, or that support, or that vanguard for its membership, and see how it builds that up. The other thing is the party that they feel is fractured, or there will be fracture. And so my leader, the Honorable Mr. Michael Pintad has preached and is preaching and is living a message of unity, of synergy, of reigniting who we are as a party. Because there's a lot of persons who want to be associated with the FNM, right? To have those persons brought back.
The next question, I think, is a logical one. What lessons did the party learn from the loss on September 16th of last year?
One of the major lessons you learn is you can't take people for granted. Internally, that there are some adjustments that we longer can we go 4 and some years without what is a sort of cleansing process for any organization. We can't go beyond 5 years without having an election. We can't go any longer and breach the mandates of the Constitution for a convention to deal with issues as we ought to hear the concerns. So many persons are happy that we're having this convention, the upcoming convention, so that they can vent their concerns, that we don't do that. And then to hear the concerns of party members who said, you did not respond directly to my needs, my aspirations, and my wants. Yes, we did a whole lot. We did a whole lot. I can call it legislation. For the first time in the history of the Bahamas, you passed the Public Procurement Act to sit down. The now persons, any member of the public who cannot explain their wealth, undisclosed wealth under the proceeds of crime. So if you find it elsewhere, that's more wealth than he can explain. You can just take it, right? We did a whole lot, but it's like I'm a lawyer and I practice. It's finding a gentleman who would have done a whole lot, but did not care for his wife, and she's gone. She no longer loves him. So, and that's why I say to you when I started off, by actually dealing with people, everything that we have, what we are tending to do, you can get so busy in doing everything that you miss who is the object of your energy, and that is the membership of the party. And so we have to get it together very quickly. I've described it to my colleagues, if you go in a NASCAR race car for 200 laps and you win, you have to do a strategic analysis. But if you blow the engine in the 50th round, a multi-million-dollar car, even the driver have to be analyzed in terms of the pit crew and everybody to understand that this is a team, that we have to support our leader, and that what makes up the party is the people. At the end of the day, it is the people that go to vote, and they must come to appreciate from the party that they are much more valuable than their ex, or you'll get what we got. And it requires an honest, forthright, and transparent analysis as we go into our strategic internal discussions and as we complete the whole process of selecting our executive members. And there go the chairman and the role what the chairman must be able to do in terms of facilitating this level of communications, facilitating the level of consultation, that people feel that their views, whether they're on Camp Road, whether behind the gates, that their views matter. People may not always tell you when they feel disrespected. And this is because I've been on the ground. I've been in Michael, North and South Andros. I did South Andros by Skype. I've been to Freeport. I'm working. And so you're hearing, and I'm asking persons, listen, this is why I come to you. I want you to be able to hear who Ellsworth is, hear from whence I come. And the end of my presentation, you have the opportunity then to ask me any legitimate question about my private life, about my professional life, and why I want to be the chairman of the Free National Movement. Most importantly, how as a member of the team of the Free National Movement, led by the Honorable Mr. Pintad, you will be able to serve in the role of the loyal opposition to check raw power.
You have hinted around your views on it, so I will ask you directly What is the role of the chairman in your view? What precisely is that role?
Well, we have a constitution, and in section 27 of the constitution, it describes the chairman as the CEO of the party, and the chairman he's not the directing mind and will of the party, but there are certain things that the chairman ought to do. And so, Richard E. Valerie said the chairman shall be the chief executive officer of the party and subject to general directives from the executive committee, shall superintend the general administration of the party. He shall preside meetings of the central council and shall have overall responsibility for all party elections, including the central council, constituency associations, torchbearers, youth associations, and women's associations, and shall be designated party officer to conduct the said elections. And there's a reason why I said that. The role of the chairman, with all the resources or the talent that the Free National Movement present, and that is the persons on the front line, the persons who are not minded to be on the front line or are not minded to give their name, that make up this team to cause the Free National Movement itself, and I'll particularize it, to be a center of excellence, that all of its constituency associations are seen as centers of excellence, not just a political talk shop. When I first came into politics, a gentleman known to both of us by the name of Cedric Parker, QC, called me to his office and he said, Ellsworth, has anybody sat you down like a son and explained to you what is the significance of your decision? Now you're going to leave the bar as president, and what is expected of you, and what will be the repercussions for you? I said, no, sir, nobody did that for me. And then he sat down to tell me about family, the support of my family, how my children, to talk to me about how my children will eat, what legacy I will leave for my children, how I will be still a part of those organizations that brought me where I am, to be a part of the party and serve the country in a transparent and dignified way. Yes? And so if the constituency associations or the party is not seen as a center of excellence, where you talk about, let's say, the Public Procurement Act and how people could access contracts, where every constituency association has a listing of its members who are employed or unemployed or their talent set, and you can do it. And when you come to have a meeting, let's just say we used to do it in Yamako, where we have meetings, we set aside where we would bring in an expert to deal with certain issues. Now that we have this whole, that's been a situation in the country for the longest, both political parties should be leading the way in the public discourse on domestic violence and violence against women and children. And to the extent it's against women and children, it is against men. So some of your best and brightest, you're saying, okay, Michael, we now have technology. There's no reason why you cannot have a joint meeting with Yamako or a joint meeting with Cat Island. A part of it is to deal with they're going to deal with domestic violence. And not only that, it gives you an opportunity to network, so that I will know Quincy in Inago sells fish, and Quincy would know that Ellsworth, Johnson, and Cat Island sells flour cake, and there can be some change. And unless we can cause, as a chairman, with all that I read, right, to bring it down to its common denominator, to cause these people that you feel that you're their protector, as the Constitution says, that you will defend their right to express their fundamental rights that are found in your Constitution: freedom of expression, movement, the right to have a job, the right to self-determine. Unless you're bringing these down in layman terms and people feel that you're doing that, you're going to have a problem, a serious problem. And so the role of the chairman of meaningful discussions, financial literacy. What does that mean? How do we involve ourselves? How do we be a part of not just to have these conversations happening somewhere else? Financial services and what it means to you, right? All of the offshoots of financial services, the construction of the home, and why you should be the one to be interacting or interfacing with the multi-millionaire or billionaire when he comes to the Bahamas by the products or services that you meet. We see it all the times on our feed when they go to eat. And so people listen, if we don't come to the point where we're doing this, where politics is more than just talk, but it involves you in the economic environment of the country, where it serves to teach you of your historical and social obligation to your country, we're doing very little. You come right back to where the master says. And it's not just being hungry in terms of physiological hunger, economic hunger, psychological hunger, intellectual hunger. And we must be here to remove those things. And so the younger generation, and when you speak to the persons who are the seniors in the party and they have that experience, they're saying, Johnson, these are the things we need to do. These are especially for the seniors, these are the mistakes that I made. We can't make them anymore. But more importantly, or just as important, the party has to be a protector of persons who decide that they want to be a member of the Free National Movement. Because those other guys, they're of the view that they have the indelible right to run this country how they feel like, and nose dive it into the ground. And so they borrow without discretion. And guess why I'm emboldened? I'm very much emboldened now, because I have children and I want to see them self-determined. So you can imagine a former minister go into a ministry and a senior person, and I want them to know that elsewhere there's no work here for you. I cannot assist you. I'm sorry. I'm told that you cannot be assisted. Well, this is the Bahamas. This is the Bahamas where I have a right to self-determine. And that's why I say to members in the Free National Movement that whether I win, whether it be win, lose, or draw, I'm in it to win it. And at the end of the day, the party has, and I'm speaking about the party has a greater obligation when you look into the Constitution, not just for its members, because if you become the government, then you're the servant of all, but to create an environment in the Bahamas as far as is possible. And then let's be real, and we have to discuss this. There are certain positions that are policy positions, and when governments change, they must change. But for those positions that are not policy positions and your members are qualified, well, they get it. As best, and try your best to even the playing field.
You're talking about a meritocracy, Ellsworth, and our history is not does not support that is how things are done.
They're not perfect.
Even to the extent of, I'm sure that there are members of, as you say, that other party who could produce evidence that they fell victim to the same thing that you are complaining about now when it was.
Let me start. When you finish.
Yeah. So, how does one take seriously this commitment that you are espousing when the history is different?
No, let me say this. Those other guys, they will say anything that benefits them. And Minister Brenzel Roll, on many occasions, got him to the house and say, no, the persons that you said were sent home were not sent home. There's a reason why we passed the Fiscal Responsibility Act. And none of the acts that we have brought into being, they're removing. The Fiscal Responsibility Act spoke directly to a government not being able to hire persons on the day just before the elections or sign contracts just before the elections without due diligence. And so in those circumstances coming up to the elections, we couldn't do it, but we did a whole lot. I can tell you for the ministry that I had responsibility for, and I'm hearing all sorts of things being said. But I checked along with others, and I can tell you persons in the Ministry of Immigration and in the Public Service Department can tell you that for all intents and purposes, promotions were finished. For all intents and purposes, the hirings that are now going through, we practically finished those. What we had established in the ministry was a mystery shopper program, and I would like to see that brought back, where the minister himself, by private individuals, were being assessed for quality service. We digitized, so there was a lot of things that we did. But to get back to your point in question, if it was done, it's no excuse to do it to somebody else. And so the parties must come to that conclusion, being very honest with themselves and trying its best to govern this country. But I can say to you, what they alleged was not so. And guess what's happening now? As they terminate contracts, as they send persons home, and I know of a real story, they're sending home their supporters. They can't believe the level of objectivity and impartiality that the Minnis administration had. And that was one of the things that Dr. Minnis was faulted for. And so in their carnage that they're carrying out now, you're not just hurting your supporters or our supporters. You're hurting too small. I'll tell you a story. I remember when I first came back from university, I thought Justice Boyd Kerry gave me, I thought Justice Boyd Kerry didn't like me because he would never move away from me when he asked a question. And I went to him to ask him, why is it you always treat me this way? He says, listen, I have a child. She thinks she's working hard, but she's not. You have potential. I can allow some of those other guys to get away, but not you. You're going to go home and you're going to research and you come back and answer this question. But he told me one thing. He says, at some point, he says this country was on the top of its game. And he said political insularity elsewhere almost brought us to our knees. Don't allow it to happen in your country. And so at some point, by using the University of the Bahamas and some of the best and the brightest and what the others have to offer, we must have these types of discussions. It's called governance. Sure, at the end of the day, we're not going to have heaven on earth. We're not going to have heaven on earth. But I'm certain that what was in heaven with war, we always have that on earth. So, as a party, we have to protect our members and they have to feel that they're much more important than a vote. But the chairman of the party must be respectful, must be facilitative, must show respect for the leader, must understand that there are certain things that are only for internal discussions, must be consultative, must feel like when I had a chat with the Nago, that their views are important. And the party must be seen as that refuge where their needs, concerns are met, right?
You touched on it just a little bit there too. One of the things that I have noticed, chairman has become a lot more public. Obviously, the chairman of the other side is a great one for public comment, and the Aframs chairman generally are not out in public. They're generally not heard from unless the situation is perceived as some kind of dire or extreme situation. And I think that to an extent has played to the party's detriment. So but that's just my view. What is your view on the public role of the chairman of the party?
Well, the chairman is obviously supported by a good team, and to the extent that the chairman involves every sinew or fiber of the party, right, tactfully in the administration of the party or what the party has to do, that is effectiveness of the chairman, right, in terms of assisting the parliamentary caucus, the women's group to deal with women's issues, the youth group to be innovative, and moving forward and encouraging them to bring new, fresh ideas and senior members to guide them. The chairman has to do that. But when it comes to the PR of the party, the chairman must step forward. Nita Buela, he who greets with fire. At some point, he must be the man under the directorship of the party, with the approval of the leader, that will take it to the issues fearlessly, honestly, and objectively, and to the extent that the chairman has not been, doing that. That has to change, right? At some point, the chairman must come and speak to issues. The leader goes to the House, he makes his presentation. I think the party and its PR team, facilitated by a very strong PR team, must be able to, by way of conventional media or contemporary media, to send that out and deal with that. And then at some point, there's an individual who almost every Monday morning, around 2 o'clock in the morning, puts out some garbage. But you have to confront him. There are those who have described him as a bully. I describe him as a bully. You have to confront him. You have to stand up to him. And not just stand up to him because it's not about him, about the issues that he pushed. And if there are circumstances where we know that the previous administration is responsible for it, and that's why I started off by commending the Fourth Estate and taking responsibility for what the Bahamian people did through the Free National Movement and releasing the airwaves. Everybody was rowing about the development, the dock development, the port development. I don't see no stoppage. Everybody argued about the Fiscal Responsibility Act and the Public Procurement Act, but I see they want to bring amendments to the Public Procurement Act to reduce the power. They were saying to us how we could increase it. Everybody discussed the fiscal disposition of the Bahamas, but I see they're traveling all over the place. The reason why we did not travel was because we had so many Bahamians who were home, and they're still at home. And we did not want to further the welfare system by sending them home, so we paid them. And we still have to do that. But these guys are living the caviar dreams. They go, and I'm not criticizing the Dubai trip, but you take a group and leave the national choir at home. And my good friend, Mr. Fraser, who comes and plays the organ and piano in St. Ambrose, is left at home and having to scrap money. No. And we must say why. So we have to identify certain things. When they come with all of the promotions for the police force, own that, and the chairman must say that. When ministers want to send a whole group of individuals home from the Urban Renewal Center, go out there, tell them no, and cry shame on a lady who would cause women who need their payment for their, right? When all of the contracts, you select all of the contracts in roads and parks, and you just end them. And then you say, bring in all your TCC and bring in all these different things. They have written contracts and verbal contracts, but come on, man. If you meet a lady with 3 children, this is inspirational leadership or servant leadership, like Solomon did with the woman and the baby. And she comes, she says, listen, this is all I have to take care of my children, and I'm doing a very good job. But no, I don't have all my stuff together. That is the time you step in and say, she doesn't have it, we can help her to get it. But don't stop her payment and let her work. So in terms of the role of the chairman and being vocal, you can't hide your light under a bushel. To be a member of the I'm proud to be a member of the Free National Movement. And I know my reasons for being a member of the Free National Movement. I know its history. I know the men and the women and the sacrifices that they've made. And I know the other side. So while we live in this country, in this constitution, democracy, and all of us have our views as to what's best for it, we have a significant, serious role to play as the opposition. But always remember this. I don't care what you do. Everything, if you look at the creation story, you look at our constitution and how it's developed, or even I don't care how palatial a house is, it's designed for someone to live in it, right? They must have water, food, fridge, security, all those different things. I don't care how palatial a hotel is. Well, there's the profit of it, right? But it's designed for someone. And the Free Nationals dispel this notion that the Free National Movement is a party for a certain group. No, we haven't arrived and we're not entitled. But that every single person in the Commonwealth of the Bahamas, including disgruntled members, can find room under our tent. And for the first time in a long time, when you saw that when Sir Cecil was break off, everybody was at Edom. And then when Sir Cecil came, the dissident, and then when Sir Cecil was giving it over to Mr. Ingram, I want to commend him for his service. All of the leaders, Sir Kendall G.L. Isaacs, appeared to be on one accord. And when Mr. Michael Pintad became leader, all of the leaders said, listen, because let's not be dishonest. There were times when they didn't even want to be in the same room. The majority of leaders, all the leaders came up and they said, we're going to support you. We have that now. We have what is the characteristics of the Free National Movement, and that's defend the people. And while at the same time creating an environment of Bahamas for Bahamians yet unborn and protecting its resources. And there's a reason why I zeroed in. We can talk about COVID-19, the financial disposition of the country, a number of other things. So when we go to land reform, when we go to tourism, when we go to any issue in the country, we must remember, and this is the word, you must remember how it directly affects the people who live in the country and how they have a material interest in their environment. And so in creating these centers of excellence is more than just a talk, because when it becomes a talk shop, we could get from him and not even vote for it, right? Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, I remember, anyways, we'll come back to that. So one of the questions that comes up in my conversations about politics is this issue of branding. The campaign for the general elections in September, it was short, but there was a tremendous difference between the style of campaign run by the Progressive Liberal Party and the style of campaign run by the Free National Movement. Given what you have said about the role of the chairman being founded in the Aframs Constitution and how seriously that document seems to underpin your own views, do you think that the FNM needs to rebrand?
In terms of, we have to listen, the rebrand, no, we have to go back to who we are. We've left certain things at a certain point. You have to pick it up. There was a reason why the Free National Movement was created. There was a need. There was a void. There's a reason why a third group, the DNA, came to fore and caused some difficulty. And they were principally made up of Free National Movement members. So in terms of, I think a baton was given to Sir Cecil and those. It was passed on. That baton is here. The needs of the people have not changed. We have to continue to produce innovative leadership. Persons have to come to appreciate that they have some confidence in you. And the only rebranding that you have to do is become a party that people can have faith in, and that is by your actions. You have to listen to your membership. And that is done by identifying, as I said, the issues as they exist in the country and dealing with them. When you look at the Free National Movement and what we've done, let's say COVID-19, by almost taking the public service fully digital, we was a part of that experience. I didn't travel as a minister. We're doing this meeting by Zoom. I attended high-level meetings by Zoom. We fully decked out with education. And you saw Bahamians who weren't in government, but private citizens coming together to build, to understand, listen, there's a certain level of efficiency we need in the country in order to take us to first world status or to improve value proposition, right? Getting work done much more faster. We have to deal with those issues. And so in terms of rebranding, we have to commit, if you have Hong Kong, if you have other countries that are able to do business at a certain speed, we have to do it better. And that's what made us one of the first choice around the world for financial services. And so the products, and we must understand as the Bahamas that we represent the crossroads of not at that time the new and the old world, but as we are now in terms of powerful countries just to our north. Europe is coming to go to Latin America. There's Central America. There's South America. There's wealth that wants to move from the Middle East, from Hong Kong and all those places. We can create the environment. So we must continue with our competitive edge. We must teach financial literacy. We must understand the importance of information technology and get those things in the school. We must understand that we are the best and the brightest. And to have financial services and tourism, it's very difficult. We have to diversify as best we can. We must now diversify. But let's just take the paradigm as we presented, because it's going to take time for diversification. If we continue to improve and to utilize the resources that we have and to improve on the way that we do business and to call on to be much more responsible, we can do it. So I'm in terms of the party and rebranding, is certain things that people are asking for. There's certain things that never goes out of style. I don't care how you rebrand, never go out of style. So the protection of women that's been here for quite some time, and I've been hitting on financial literacy, the state of our land situation, and how people are dispossessed, the use of information technology, how in terms of an archipelago, how we get information and resources to move much more quicker, to cause the wealth in the Bahamas to be well, somebody says this, but the cost of wealth in the Bahamas to be much more evenly distributed. And for people to understand and appreciate that you really have their interests at heart. So in terms of the party, and when you look at what the leader is saying, and his motto is about getting back to the way that we once did business, to cause people to trust the FNM one more time. And they are prepared to work if they have that trust in the party.
The FNM's brand has always been transparency and accountability. It's been, there's another statement that, it's a matter of trust. The other statements include so how do you, as the chairman, convince a country that of September 16th clearly indicate that they don't necessarily believe that it's a matter of trust, for instance? How do you get to them and say, here's who we are, here's how we, this is what I mean when I say rebranding. Yes, I agree with you that it's not, what may be necessary is not a whole new brand for the FNM, but it's clear that there was a disconnect between the FNM's brand and the voters on September 16th. So what do you do about that?
First, for the membership of the party, as I said, we have to move past where we are now in terms of selecting the executive leadership of the party. We have to move there. And as we do that, I want to commend all of the persons participating in that process for the level of objectivity, because it's a competition. Persons are they're trying their best to become officers in the party for the conduct thus far. There are any number of persons who are dissatisfied and are suffering from buyer's remorse, right? There's a story I saw in one of the chat groups where they were looking at the whole issue of the removal of VAT on bread basket items. And a number of persons were concerned that they were duped by the promises that were made. And there are any number of members who want to be involved in the party, come back and assist. So in terms of rebranding and assisting to participate in the party, we must have an open door policy, and as the leader said, all who feel disenfranchised can come back and participate. There has to be a strategic analysis in allowing persons to express their views as to what they thought went wrong, because the party can come out and say what it thinks went wrong, but you have to have persons who are a membership of the party being able to express those views to no less a person in an environment where the leader hears it and he's able to put the policies and visioning to those views to produce a platform for the party. And so in terms of doing that, we have to be able to have that level of involvement of the persons on the ground in that process to be able to do that. And then they must have the confidence to move out of the way. The whole concept that people don't like instability, that this present leader may be an interim leader. Everybody must commit to supporting and playing their role in the party, right? Everybody has to commit to doing what is necessary to take us to the next general elections. And so it's all about creating that environment where persons feel confident that their views are going to be heard, that even at this point where persons feel disadvantaged, that you as a party, that we as a party are coming to the aid of those individuals and defending them, and they have some trust and confidence in that process. And then by the way, we objectively select persons for the various committees in the party, conduct our electoral process, because persons are watching, the membership, they're watching, the level of respect and courtesy that we show to each other, the level of respect and courtesy that we show to the leadership, right? And so that is a part of living the experience of when you say you want to reignite, and every member of the party now, if you look, you have Mr. Cartwright, Mr. White, Mr. Sands, Mr. Folks, and the other persons, when you look at the party paraphernalia, they're talking about unity, about respect, about love, because they understand that there was a deficiency, there may have been a deficiency in that area, why persons stayed away. They're talking about how they will create the environment for proper communications. When you speak to persons from different islands, listen. You didn't listen to me. When I met you, I'm on an island where I depend on a boat to come, on a plane to come, where I still, in 2022, don't have water. So yes, in the context of where we found ourselves, think about this. You were part of BPL. You were part of that experience where 50-year-old generators, a generator was removed. And we properly resolved the whole issue of lights going off and coming on. That was one of the hottest topics. Mr. Ramon Ferrer and his team, after all of the fury around the dump fire, it's like it never existed. And I could name them. We went in the immigration department, we went cashless. The immigrant community celebrated. We were well on our way to going paperless, where applications are made online. We were doing all these things. And yet still felt disenfranchised. We were trying our best so they could get their licenses, their driver's license online. Passports, just think about the passport department. You could apply online and get it. You're doing everything. And that is why your uncle, Mr. Dion Hanna Jr., when he was training me as a lawyer, he says, that's why a lot of fellas are home by themselves in beautiful homes with big cars. For the want of a nail, all for the want of a horseshoe nail. We forget those things that appear to be simple. For the want of a nail, a shoe was lost. A horse was lost. A rider was lost. The kingdom was lost. All for the want of a horseshoe nail. Because we didn't pay particular attention to those significant things that seem unimportant. I've been highlighting some of the successes of the government, that this government will celebrate. The Over the Hill project, all of the Southern Islands being tax-free areas, starting to give out, retrenching the lands and survey and giving people their properties, speeding things up. We created the Economic Advisory Committee, who are advising us in the and guess what? Our second industry did not take a dip; it increased. There are plenty firsts and some miraculous accomplishments. Over there, we did the project. There was a plan to do the boardwalk and connect everything that this administration will go ahead and do. And I could name them. The legislative, when we came to power, I want to commend the former Attorney General. I remember, I forgot his name, guys. You've been doing almost absolutely nothing, Pascal. And I know the industry is listening. We got all of the industry partners together. And we draft and we draft and we draft. And the end result is we now removed from the blacklist. So the partnership that we created with industry and civil society that caused that to happen. So I can tell you all of these different things. But persons lost confidence. They didn't think that they were being cared for in the way that they should have been cared for. In terms of COVID-19, they probably didn't feel as if the level of, they understood. People understood that, listen, people was for the first time, we saw planes not moving. But it's the way you deal with people. You could say good morning, but there's a way how you say good morning. And so there are a lot of positive, Mr. Lloyd did, yes, and I want to commend the Teachers Association and the supposed to be vigorous in their representation of the teachers and children and education. But oh my God, I watched him. I watched Rotary. I watched everybody bring in computers. I watched parents having to juggle. We didn't get it right. But there was a benefit from the crisis. And so I could say, but you're asking about rebranding. There's no way to rebrand the way you treat people. The level of courtesy and respect and caring that's necessary. You just have to do that. And when you do it, people got to understand that you mean it. So where do you have to show that? People have to see you among them. They used to say, the older guys knew how to come and sit in the community, eat with you, talk with you, and you got the impression you knew that they really cared for you. And a part of that caring, if you care, right? And so when you speak of a rebranding, every person that you will have on your show and you ask them, they will be able to highlight all of the successes of the government. Perhaps we should have gone a little further. It was very difficult. I remember when Dorian came, and nobody has challenged me on this yet. If you look at the level of devastation on Abaco and Freeport, looking at per capita and the size of the Bahamas and the population side, I can easily say it's almost equivalent to 5 states in America being totally devastated. Unimaginable. Abaco representing one of the largest, Freeport, some of the largest, second and third largest economies in the Bahamas. And we were able to clean it up, get people working. And people during the COVID-19 crisis, all of the hotels, almost all that represents about 60% of our gross domestic product was down. And so you tried your best to assist persons. Nobody said yet that the minister took something. I want to commend Shannon Dawn Cartwright for the balancing act that he did. And I used to go there to see him sometime. And people used to be all over the place. Listen, this road need to be clean. I can do this, I can do that. But for the way those persons were treated but let me stick to what we have to do to rebrand. Man, you gotta be human. You go into those houses and you go into those communities. When you're doing certain things, it's the way how you do it. It's like, you meet a friend in an org, or fellas go to court, and then you go meet, they're doing lifetime, or they got 15 years, and they could say to you, listen, boy, that judge, one thing I can say about that judge, he was honest and he was fair. Ain't nothing I can say, and I have to deal with this. So you see, in the most difficult time of a person's life, he can then refer back and say, and you don't hear nothing. Think about it. You don't hear it being said about judges in the Bahamas that they were dishonest. The first thing the guy said, we're going to appeal it. I don't think he got the law right, but no malice. So when we treat with people, it must be without fear, favor, ill will, or malice. And persons are of the view, when you speak generally to them about the way we conducted ourselves, that is one of the things. And then dealing with our membership, because it's suspected the lowest voter turnout ever in the history of the Congo Bahamas. Those other persons won by the margin that they lost by. Almost won by the margins that they lost by. Being Mr. Know-It-All, a party that knows it all, as you ask me these questions, the reasonable and prudent thing to do is a strategic analysis, and we haven't done that as yet. We're still talking, but we don't have the luxury of time. The race has already started. And those guys are putting laps on you. So you can't be on the line, just let me say this, you can't be on the line and your buggy cart saying boom, boom, boom. This is a real race. And it's for the survival and the protection of this constitutional democracy that we love.
The race has already started.
That's right.
And I'm curious, let me just ask you, is the Aframs still relevant in 2022?
Of course it is. It is relevant. It is relevant because it went to the polls. It suffered the death. But my minority government now is now in charge of the Bahamas. And we got the seats that we got. So there is relevance. And to the extent that we are empowered by the law to do what we do. And we've been given the role of a loyal opposition by way of our constitution. We are relevant. But by the things we do and the things we say, that will be the acid test. The things we don't do is the acid test of our relevance, and whether or not, as we move along, persons will buy into us and come back home. And those who are not members of the party will join us. That is significant. But we are relevant, very much so. And I want to commend our leader for his energy, for what he's been doing, his support team, his parliamentary, all of the MCMs, the former leaders, the people in the trenches. See, the trench people are very good. They sometimes don't care about being executive members of the party, but they are warriors in their own right for all those persons who still support. So very, very, very much so. And we have some brilliant women who are part of our organization. Very much so.
How will and this turns back to more of the party business. The rap on the Afram has always been that it is a coalition of wildly different interests. You have the Cecil Wallace Whitfield Aframs, and you have the Kendall Isaacs Aframs, and you have the Hubert Ingram Aframs, and now you have the Hubert Minnis Aframs. Will be, hopefully, if his message of unity is bought into, then you'll just have Aframs. But given that the history of the party is what it is, how will you, as the chairman, deal with the different factions in the party?
Obviously, one has to be strong those factions must have confidence in the integrity of the person who is to be chairman, and understand and believe that you're going to do what's in the best interest of the party. And then, but just allow me this aside. I know that's what has been said about the FNM, and a part of it is a campaign tool. Because if you look at those other guys, you have this Cylinders faction. The deputy leader is saying is not to be a member of the party. For reason, their factions also, that's just a natural part of life. You saw it. We always like to refer to the Bible in terms of the disciples who had their crew. But to the extent that is the case, we have to tactfully, and Mr. Ingram referred to it one time about the different factions that exist within the Free National Movement. We have to, in terms of the successful Wallace Whitfield and his legacy, to respect the level of sacrifice, right, that Successful and the Dissident Eight and those early members would have, they gave their blood, sweat, and tears to create what we now celebrate. And so we have to honor and respect that at all times. It's like respecting seniors in the party. And so it is with the other former leaders. And the way we treat with them, and even the way we deal with that, will resonate with persons in the party to say that we are one and we are whole. We have one constitution at the end of the day. That is not fractionalized. One document that we all must look to, right? One intention, and that is to create a country where all have a right to live and self-determine. That's one. And so we have to use that document, use the philosophy of Successful and all of the other persons who came along and what motivated other persons as they, like Mr. Ingram, to leave those up to the other party, to come here, to use that as a cementing factor to take us forward. And we have to do that. And then to understand that teeth and tongue will clash, but they still have to live in the same vicinity. And so that's what we have to do. But you have to see when I look at the party and I look at different constituency associations, the different interests that exist. They're vital organs of one. And so we must know how to service, how to respect, how to revitalize, how to interact, how to treat with those persons, and cause them to understand that we have one goal, we have one leader, we have one objective, and the major objective is our country and all of the persons who are in it. And understand that we all make up this organization, that no one is entitled. Nobody, as much as we may feel anywhere in the church or in any organization, that I'm much more entitled in this one. You sometimes drive people away like that. And understand that this lowest common denominator, where if we get all of it right, it comes down to a peaceful experience where every man and woman, regardless of their socio-economic or where they fall in that hierarchy, has an X. And it's interesting to see how you realize that when it's time to get that exit. But we cannot suffer from selective amnesia for 4.5 years. So I hope that, so whatever it is, you have to, and it has been done before, and we're doing it now. And I believe in the leadership of Mr. Michael Pintad. I know from whence he come. I know the community from which he came. We lived in, well, he came same community as Dowd Scott. I know his people. I know the strength of character. I know how he came up, the difficulties he's experienced. And all of those experiences, I think faith placed them at the right points in his life to prepare him for this exact same moment. And so it's for us now to play our role. And one's role may be, and we must see every role as being significant and celebrate that role that persons play in the party.
This is a corollary question, but is unity possible in the FNM? Is it realistic to expect that you can really unify?
They are unified. We've just elected a leader.
Mm-hmm.
There are certain realities in life. I was speaking this. Listen, Christ himself tell you, man, you have the difficulties. That's a natural part of life. The most sophisticated and technologically advanced piece of creation ever, human being, was given a mandate given no other entity on it to conquer and subdue. And like I tell my children, it requires effort, endurance, getting up every day to go at it. And that is the Free National Movement. So there will be disagreements because we don't think alike. No one man thinks alike. But at the end of the day, we must allow common sense to prevail. No one lady thinks alike. We are now headed toward, on the 25th of February, to select the other executive members of our association. And we're going to do that. Some persons are going to succeed, some are not. And just like our leader did, when he succeeded as leader, he took Mr. Aram Lewis and Mr. Crazy Thompson. They held hands and they walked together. That's servant leadership, inspirational leadership. And that did a whole lot for the party. And then his ego wasn't so large that he couldn't share the stage with other former leaders. And that has to resonate throughout the party. And so on the 25th, no less is expected. Win, lose, or draw, you're a Free National Movement member. Your assignment may not be chairman, vice chairman, or whatever have you, but we still have a role for you. And you're incredibly important to what we have to do. Each one bring one. And we are as strong as our weakest link. And yes, there will be disagreements. There will always, man, listen, as healthy as you look, there are certain things that are working together to keep you before this camera. And that's how the body works. Why a headache comes, but you deal with it. You might not have drank sufficient water. Drink your water. And so I think too many times in life, we believe that, everything is supposed to just happen. It just doesn't happen that way. We have to work at it. Mm-hmm. And we have a deep bench. We have a lot of committed MCMs, all of them, former ministers, former candidates, the Women's Association, the Youth Association, and then there are those members who are giving you that signal. Say, come over here, I got something to tell you. I have an interest in what you must be attuned to your environment, that you can see those signals and involve individuals in the life of the party. And half of the things is not what we see. There are thousands of members who may not want to put on the red shirt, but they're just as much FNM as you are. Or their vocation, and because of their level of maturity, may cause them not to be able to celebrate outwardly who they are. Because there are certain jobs you can't do it. But you have to be able to touch them. You have to be able to communicate with them. And those are the things that we must be attuned to. So we're relevant, we're unified. We have, I know that he's been placed here for the right time. We have a brilliant leader. And we have seniors, women, men, and we even training children. I didn't start with my daughter, 6 years old. Bang, she knows what it means. To support the party.
Okay. Well, I mean, that's the thing, isn't it? To step aside from 10 questions. PLPs are said to raise PLPs, but FNMs are not.
Listen, the leader said something that was phenomenal. Phenomenal. And it really shouldn't be phenomenal. Successorship. And Dr. Miles Monroe said, you cannot walk into a room and see your successor. You're not doing it right. And we are described as only being a vapor. And so in terms of those persons who will take the party, we have to train them. We have to bring them in. We have to say, these are the concepts on which we were built. Now we need to look at them to see, can we tweak them in any way to improve who we are or our offerings to members of the Bahamian public. Then there are those Aframs who may not live in the Bahamas, maybe at UE, Europe, Canada. I hear from people from all over the world who love their country and who want to be a part of the experience and who live that experience even though they're in a foreign country. They want to be a part. They may not want to be on the front line, but they may have scholarships that they could send back. Then there are those persons, the foreign direct investors who like the philosophy of our party. You could never hear of our party that we take 10%. I don't care what you say about the former ministers of the Free National Movement. No, man. Marvin or all those guys, you would hear them say things about that, but you didn't hear that there were shakedowns. You don't even want that to be a discussion. You don't want that to be a discussion. And so there are the persons who are here. There are ones who are in the family islands, our supporters who may be disenchanted, who are still working. There are those who have gone abroad. There's the student population, and there are those who have relocated for whatever reason. We have to create the environment where they have faith, confidence, and trust. And as I said to you, listen, just BPL alone, you worked at BPL. I saw BPL. I went in there and I saw where you could eat in there. You couldn't hear the generators going. I went to the Brewell plant when they all brought in the generator, set it up. We went for a whole summer. Nobody talks about blackouts. If the lights goes off, they say, oh, somebody knocked down a pole. It's not a blackout. You remember when the dump used to burn. I mean, Mr. Ferreira and his team did a phenomenal job. Abaco, I went there and I cried when you smelled death. When I went back and I saw how teams went in and just cleaned that Freeport. I mean, it wasn't done the way we wanted to do it. And people were still concerned that we did not focus on, because there are some people who are still out, don't have homes and all those different things. I want to commend all the NGOs that participated in assisting people. Our legislative agenda was vigorous. I knew because I was there debating it. You know what it is in a country where 60% of your gross domestic product disappeared on you, and you found a way to keep everybody who could not work paying them, and for the new government to come in and say, wow, let me say in street terms, to say, those guys did a phenomenal job. I almost could find no fault with what they did. We have a whole lot here, and we're seeing the improvements. And then the level of dishonesty, come on, man. Certain things you can't do in 2 months. You know that. I was speaking to somebody about, and I take that away because I have great respect for Mr. Bell. But let's take immigration. There's no way that you could do a strategic promotion throughout the ministry in 2 months. When Ellsworth Johnson looked at the names and went through them, and I know the persons who I can't call their name because still confidentiality, and they work in the system, who went through it. With the new class, we started to give out approval letters for persons to come. And one of the things we were guarding against, as we saw when we came in, we didn't want anybody there with ankle bracelets. So there were a whole lot of things that we did. We got some right, and even for those things that you got right, persons might not have agreed that they were right, and we got some wrong. But for the things that I call where you had major economies crashing, listen, when a rich gentleman told me, he said, you know, anybody who had the money should go into the rental of luxury yachts. They were pulling up into the Bahamas. Benicio de Aguilar. I mean, boy, he was flying just before the pandemic. He closed the deal on the overflight, not been making monies on it. So I know what we did. I know what we did in terms of bringing some regularity and transparency to the way that governments are operated. We laid the court services bill, the ombudsman. We put a white paper for land reform. I was always beating that. But having to persons dying, and this, I think this is what was caused us a lot of pain too. When COVID first started, there was a conventional way with it, which you did, and it was changing. So what you started off with in 2019 did not make sense in 2020. And then you had the leader of the government, who was saying, open up, close down, open the bars. On any side of the line that he thought or they thought they could get benefit, that's what they did. But we're not crying over spilled milk. That's not the Aframs policy. It's for us to sit down, to strategize like a good fighter, counterpunch, and come out of this being led by the Almighty. And we're doing that.
I'm going to get back to my 10 questions. I got 4 or 5 left. 3 or 4 left, sorry. But before I get back to that, I want to say to the point that you've just made. To the point that you've just made, there is a reality that I wonder sometimes whether the Free National Movement believes in, right? One of the common sayings of Mr. Christie when he was Prime Minister was that there was a need to tell a story, right? You tell a story of what you've done. And in fact, he was heard to say that the reason that the party lost was because they didn't tell the story of what they had accomplished. And if I go back to successive FNM administrations and consider the legislative or political success, FNMs don't talk about their successes. FNMs don't tell the story. And so is it any wonder that people don't give the party credit for those things that otherwise the party might get credit for?
You know, the danger in not telling your story means that you have a group that will take it. I heard Sir Cecil gave a speech and he refutes the whole concept that majority rule was brought through by the other fellas. He says, no, we were there. He was the chairman at that time, one of the most energetic. And when you look at the role of the chairman, an innovative chairman that party had ever seen. And I think we need to play that speech more for people to hear it. And for us to have our own service celebrating what we did as a people or as a party, or what our forefathers did in the party to do that. We have to, there's a difference between being arrogant and saying what you've done. I think sometimes we get that mixed up. Our God, we ascribe to him all the praises of how great he is and all those different things. And we say it in a certain reverence, in a certain way. We're not to obviously take that to ourselves, but there's nothing wrong with a party with highlighting and taking responsibility for what you've done, because they're going to give you what you did wrong or what they think you did wrong. And so we see it now where they're prepared to go and inaugurate something because you don't say that you did it. You know, you can't blame them, and they have no shame in doing it. So we have a responsibility through our PR team, through our leader, to work on that aspect of our politic in the way we try to convince persons that we are the best entity for the Bahamas. We have to tell them about teaching our history, very important in our branding. and in the whole concept of creating centers of excellence. And you saw where you have to tell them how is it you came to have so many news media stations. Tell them what they did, how they fixed stories, and who were the persons who are still alive who did it. Tell them what they said about all the roads them dig up. And then Cambridge, whoo, this is a beauty. Highlight all those things and show how duplicitous they are. Say to them how they, you have some guys who are in the government now who, lambasted the Free National Movement. And they're doing, my good friend, and I love him and I respect him, but I'm very disappointed. I'm very disappointed. The media, the role of the media is most significant. And we have to have, as a party, have persons come and just give a distinguished lecture on the role of the Fourth Estate and the significance of the Free National Movement and guaranteeing that, what that did for women, what that did for communications down in Family Islands. And now you have Mr. Watson, those who are saying the media can't come meet me on the side. Colleagues saying, no man, you were on this side saying this should never work. We have to tell our story. We have to tell our story. Light wasn't on Cat Island. That's what happened. No matter what they said about land reform, it is this party that moved it. No matter what they said, they made jokes about the former prime minister. Oh, he's going bad talk. He never said those things. The reason why they got away with changing momentum, because we said nothing. We did not take the speech and dissect it and say, this is what he said. And to the extent that you can't have communications in the Family Island or healthcare, the system is corrupt. Those are some of the things that he referred to. Speak about the Fiscal Responsibility Act and what it did. I remember the lady who used to write in the Punch, saying to the deputy leader of the then opposition, you got it wrong. This is a brilliant piece of legislation. It brings structure back to what we did. I heard them saying the freedom of information. If memory serves me correct, that was laid by the Ingram administration. They don't have it. Well, that takes time for that to come in. We brought trainers down here to do that. We selected a commissioner. We were moving toward that. First world countries of Jamaica who did it so long, we brought their expert and they said, this don't happen overnight. You're headed in the right direction. All those things we did, how we balanced the economic environment, doing COVID and all of that. Digitization across the board, what Minister Thompson and others did for digitization. We need to sing that praise that we took what was a crisis and we benefited. We made an opportunity. We were innovative. Education. The ministry for which I was adopted as the poster child for digitization. The former FS and other persons sat with industry and crafted something, and the immigration officers saw that it came to light. We have to explain these things. Or, like I said to a gentleman, he said, Johnson, boy, those guys just came and all them promotion come out, man. They say, you all ain't do nothing. I said, think about it, sir. He's a senior lawyer. I said, what do you think? A strategic promotional exercise. Don't you have to do vettings? Don't you need ACRs? Where can you have that done? He says, you're right, He said, but them fellas settling it like the stairs. I said, because they have no shame. But unless and until we tell our story, it comes through the leader, principally the chairman of the party, very forceful, and the different arms of the party, and educating us on our history, on where we came from, what has happened, and this is what made, to tell them that there were persons who were laughed at, scorned in this community. And when you see senior fellas like a Jet Culman, I all like what Mr. Jet Culman or Mr. Theo Farquharson. This is why you see Mr. Theo Farquharson, he is now up in age. Who was this little bright-skinned man talking dead loud and jumping? You should have seen him 30 years ago, riding on the mail boat, sleeping on the floor, arguing for you to have this day. Huh? So We have to tell our story. We have to be proud of our story, and we must celebrate our accomplishments. And by celebrating our accomplishments, that means that you get and I say this with respect, a Dame Janet Boswick, and you tell of the legislation, the legislations that she helped to bring to fore, the Status of Children's Act, and all those different legislations she helped with. This is some significant things that we did. The first attempt of constitutional reform, the Free National Movement. Now everybody's saying, let's do it, man, please. The freedom of the airwaves and all that did for everybody, the protection of women. Some significant things were done by our party. You know, and so that's why I'm so proud to be a member of the Free National Movement. I'm not going anywhere. And then the things that the other side had done. Tell why we had the commission in the 80s. And we're not trying to be denigrating or disrespectful. If you don't know your past, you're bound to repeat it. Talk about those things. And why we had the commissions on the police force. Don't let these guys get away with telling you after Mr. Marvin Daines brought an irrefutable report on the structure of the police force. I mean, whether or not people say we get it right or wrong, show the justification for why we did things. And that is why the party structure, whether it be the women's organization, there's various constituency associations, respect for the chairman and all those persons, they must be seen and not seen, accepted as centers of excellence to teach about our history, to teach about current affairs, to tell people this is why this amendment is not good, to say why these guys twist your mind sometimes and say, oh, they increase VAT by 50% or more. And they get away with it. You don't refute it. And we have to do that. And then to confront these things as come out. Because if you see what is going to come out just tonight, around 12 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning, you gotta respond to it. And then when you go into the House of Assembly, if someone is prepared to allow you to call their name, say, listen, man, Mr. Leader of the government, Ellsworth Johnson was dismissed from X, and we're of the view that it was because of political discrimination, ostracization, victimization, and brutalization. That's a question I have for you. And you name them if they want to have their names named. And sometimes, your father told me something. He said, sometimes you got to throw the bucket in the road. You got to take some people down to roads and parks, because that you get your permission from the police commission. You know, that's it. I don't wonder if Mr. Davis still has that tin of corned beef on his desk, or after he won, if he got rid of it. People are still to do. And then understand at the end of the day, there's certain things that transcends partisan politics. We have to move the Bahamas ahead, you know.
Yeah, I think the FNM needs to learn to tell its story. That is just for the purposes of history, for the purposes of the Bahamian identity, for the purposes of understanding what it means to be a Bahamian. The fact you cannot have this history that completely ignores the contributions of one of the two major parties to shape the modern country. Absolutely. If you let the PLP tell the story, it was the PLP that shaped the modern Bahamas.
Absolutely.
And as someone who has lived through it, I know that not to be the case.
It's not to be right.
If I don't have a dog in the race, and the Free National Movement has a dog in the race, I mean, if you shut up and just sit there, then you're conceding the field, and I don't think you should. That's all I'm saying.
You shouldn't.
The next question I have for you, sir, is founded on the last sort of 2 years of the Minnis administration. there was serious tensions between Dr. Minnis and the chairman, Carl Kalman. And those tensions eventually, I think, led to they had some fallout in the way the party governed, the way the party related to its people, and the way the party campaigned. So my question is, what is the role of the chairman with regard to the leader? How two extremely important offices, in your view, relate to each other and interact?
Perhaps if I give an illustration, there are those who may not understand, because I was thinking about a mate on a ship, responsible for the full administration of the workings of the ship. And the reason why I use the ship is because I could recall my days traveling from Cat Island, the rough seas that you met up with. And then my father told me, but when he used to travel on a sailboat and you had no breeze, but the chairman and the leader must be a symbiotic relationship where the leader understands what are the obligations and responsibility to the party, right? And the chairman understands that and understands his role. And there are certain things I must say to you that I'm not going to discuss on the show. I'm not going to admit or deny, because there are certain things that we will discuss behind closed doors, but I'm telling you what the chairman should do with the leader. He must be a trusted confidant of the leader, right? And the leader and the party must have no misgivings that the chairman objectively has the best interests of the party at heart. And so the leader should not be concerned about the engine room, because I'm looking, yes, he knows that everything is checked and is ready and is running, right? So in terms of the modalities or the full functioning of the constitutions, the chairman is ensuring that committees, that one, their agreement on the appointment of the committees, but he's checking to make sure, he's trusting, but as Ronald Reagan said, he's verifying that the deputy chairmen are doing their work with the constituency associations. There's a full communication, that the messaging or the branding of the party is being disseminated, that there's innovative programs, because we've already put together a platform in terms of where we want to go. But the chairman is the person who will administer that as the chief CEO, chief executive officer. He's ensuring that those things run. He's ensuring that as we've discussed earlier, at this lowest common denominator, that the persons are respected in the party, that he respects the leader. There are certain things that are not for public consumption or for discussion about the leader. If they have a disagreement, in certain extent, the party should not know. They should close doors. But when they come out like a properly oiled army, they're fighting. And so it is incredibly important. And that's why I started off my presentation by saying, listen, I'm speaking to the elephant in the room. The leader must trust that the enormous power that is given to the chairman, the party's machinery, that at the end of the day, he isn't strategically locked out, and that the chairman has the party, or has the confidence of the party. At all times, the chairman, in his discussion or deliberations, down to the rank and file, was be reinforcing the tenets of the constitution of the role of the leader as prescribed by the Constitution. So at no time, even by mistake, should the chairman say,
yeah, I can hear you fine. Mm-hmm.
So at no time, even by mistake, should the chairman say, this is my executive, or this is my party. The chairman must understand that the leader is the leader, and that the gentleman way down in the back is a leader in his own right. And as best he can, along with the philosophy of the party, create the environment where everybody is growing and the machinery is working. But it's a relationship of trust and confidence. And the chairman must be strong enough to tactfully advise the leader and to create the environment in the party where legitimate advice can come to the party. The chairman must also have an attitude, an embracing attitude, where he's not abrasive, persons are not being pushed away, but there's always an open door. So where someone comes with a new talent, because of how you run the different agencies, whether it be the finance committee, communications, the women's association, because he's responsible for assisting with the selection of members, that those processes are transparent, that the two deputy chairmen are doing what they're responsible to do, and to the extent that they may not, how to tactfully deal with that, with the assistance of the leader, because you must always reference the leader. This is an organization. And when you look at the structure of the party, you see the structure of the country. You have a prime minister, the different organs of government, you have a chief justice, and there are different leaders. You understand me? In the committees, the chairmen understand what that is. And then ongoing professional development training, not just for himself, because you have to have conclaves, and you bring in leaders in the party, and those expertise who can assist the party in becoming much more fluid. Because as you go along, there will be, you have to oil certain things, you have to make those adjustments. But listen, you can't, and I'm not speaking to that, hypothetically I'm speaking, you can't have the chairman in one corner and the leader in one corner, and there's a struggle between the chairman and the leader as to who's the leader. Or the chairman is bad-mouthing the leader and the leader is bad-mouthing. This is hypothetical now, by bad-mouthing the chairman. When the chairman goes out to speak, he goes out with the authority of the leader and the party. Then the chairman and the leader has to understand there's a constitution and there's a party, there's a central council, there's an executive council, and they come to certain conclusions on how they govern us. But in terms of the branding that you speak about, it getting the confidence, the chairman must always understand he or she is a part of the branding and do what is always reasonably necessary to sell the party in a positive light, and understand that the party is influencing an entity. Because when you look at the opposition is now putting to a government. The government has a party that supports it, but the opposition is putting, and the government really, that's why we criticize the government when it doesn't do something in the best interest of everybody. The opposition has that awesome responsibility to represent the views of persons who are not even in the party. So the chairman has an extremely significant role. And this is how I describe the chairman when I have discussions. Think about it, you're a sportsman. A chairman is like a quarterback. He doesn't own the team. He goes on the field, he's not the coach. He may not be the superstar player. But the quarterback, he kissed that game goodbye. If you don't have a good point guard to bring that ball up and to understand that, listen, I bring it up, I pass it on to the center. He gets the shot. I need to take the shot every shot. It's about team. And he must sell the idea and the concept of the party that there's no I in team. And so everybody is significant. And so the chairman can't come and say, I. It's a team. You must always represent. Jordan Does were never, all of the great players were never able to win a championship until they recognized the importance of the team. And what is most fundamental in the team, get this now, is your supporters. You remember MLK with the white thing? Mm-hmm. Anytime you see you didn't have the momentum of your supporters or they're cheering the team, stop players and say, sit down, we can call it a night. So you must understand all of the chairman has to be attuned with all of the different facets of the organization. Mm-hmm. And for those persons who may not don the uniform to go on the court, and for the guy who's sitting down with his beer in his hand, he's vital to the organization. Let people sit at home and don't go walking on the streets and call you and say, hey, this what I hear? Some persons who, there's a lady I go to see sometimes in Yamakro who knows more than me and you. Mm-hmm. And then she has the ability to take the information that she gets and say, I see this before. This is where I saw this. Tell me about who's acting. Oh, because now she can profile people. She said, I know that person. I know who they're married to. I know where the family come to. That's where they can turn left. And just like she said, not on the court. So the chairman must have the wisdom, ask God to bless him with the wisdom, knowledge, and understanding to represent all of the strengths and inclusive of the way of servant leadership, how he serves the leader, how he's to interact with the leader, how he's to respect the leader, how he's to, without the leader asking for something. That's it. And the leader says, wow, like a good basketball team. So the fella said, well, how he knew that? They said they gelling. You see the fellas come up and he just put the ball there and the fella just run there. How he knew just to throw the ball up? Because they're working. And that's what we need. That's where we're working toward. If you don't have a good point guard who respects the player and sometimes go and say, man, you hit the shot. You missed the shot. Come, you can go again. And respecting all the entities. The chairman is most fundamental to the success of the party. But any leader be a fool to allow the wrong person to be his chairman.
I almost feel like we should stop the show there, but I know, but the Pintad is listening. But anyhow, so the next two questions are a little more general. I think they're an easier or a more difficult sort of question to answer. What do Aframs want?
Aframs want, want its party to recapture the glory days. I've said to you a whole lot of stuff. Even let me just break it down. I told you what your father said to me. He was a former, and when I tell them, some of my colleagues, what he said, they say, wow, nobody spoke to me about that. Because the reality is on both sides, the average candidate that comes to politics, they're not financially secured. There are very few you could count on one hand who are financially secured. So they take a blow. So they want those type of things. When I say, but it's form of glory, for those who can remember, and that's why you have those ones who stick so hard to successor and what he did to have a headquarters in Freeport and the things he did to travel back and forth. Aframs want, again, to have that party that is fighting extremely hard for the common man, for the downtrodden, and who is prepared to stand up to the strongest. It wasn't easy when you sit at the feet, listen to Sir Arthur, Mr. Maurice Moore, Mr. Theo Farquharson, Dame Janet Bostwick, all those persons who might not have climbed to those heights in politics and who would have never been honored or respected for the Jet Culmers and all those. Goofy Brown. And they tell you certain things. There was a time, like you said, in telling our story. That's why when you meet them, they keep talking to you about the Afram. They want to reclaim that. And then for a group that is so brutal. And I remember prior to the 2017 elections, you had the Chief Justice who publicly said, if you don't like what a judge says, you don't demonize them, threaten them with prison. Nobody's ever and threaten them with imprisonment. You don't do that, and especially for people who know better. People were concerned that individuals were listening to their messages. You remember that? There was that fear that everybody thought someone was listening to what they were doing. You know, the underhand way, Aframs want a group that would come and speak to those issues. when you said telling our story, you need to have a Dame Janet Bostwick and the women that support her to come and tell why they move the direction in which they move for, hello? My thing is gone. Hello?
No, I'm here.
Okay.
I just turned off the camera for a second. Yeah.
For the reason why they moved in the directions in which they move. They want that type of security again. When you think of the history and you know the history of the party and the infrastructural advancements, legislative advancements of digitization, the companies that are now in the Bahamas, that those are the guys celebrating, they want us to be that way again. And so we have to move. There's certain the reasoning you made mention of certain things that may have gone wrong in the party that I'm not prepared to bring our business to the street, that we have to deal with internally. There's some internal surgeries that we have to do. There's some broken bones that we have to mend. There's some open wounds that we have to dress. And we have to be able to deal with them honestly. For instance, there's some people who we ignored for no good reason. Because, one time I had to say to a group of persons, I said, it seems, I said to them, but that's a fallacy. Nobody could levitate. That's arrogance. You're still on the ground. All you can do is bust yourself up when you fall. And so, we just have to do certain things. And I think a lot of it requires, as our leader's doing, as he's extended the olive branch to all and sundry, we have to continue to do that. You identified that there may be certain different groupings in the party. We must ensure that nobody is penalized if they want to participate in the party because they supported this one or supported that. One umbrella, and the leaders call for that. And then we must ensure as FNMs that we persistent disruptors to disrupt our progression. All of that has to be done behind closed doors. And so, and that's basically what people want. And a group that they could, and when they think about what we did, what we're doing, and what we have done, because you said, we have to tell our story. We have to tell our story. And as we tell our brilliant story, there will be those who want to be a part of our journey. We have to tell it and tell of our reasonings and be proud about it. And not allow some people to concoct stories. They do that very well. And we hang our head in shame.
The last question number 10, unfortunately, you only have 4 minutes to answer it, and it may be the hardest or the easiest question of the 10. How can the FNM win the next general election?
I have to distill everything I said. The PLP most certainly didn't win this election, right? Lowest voter turnout ever. There was still a general consensus that the people didn't want the Progressive Liberal Party, the majority of them. Persons stayed at home. In terms of winning the next general elections, we have to get off the starting line. We have to select our officers. We have to show respect for every member of the party and understand that politics is about people. We have not arrived and we're not in touch. Every shoulder to the wheel. That includes the leader, the deputy leader as we will select, every former leader, to the extent that you have persons like Mr. Ingram wanting to be a part of it. Of course, they know their role. Every former member of parliament, you must be able to identify all of these different individuals and know who they are in the different constituencies. turn those constituencies, including the headquarters, into centers of excellence that people could believe in and trust in. Select, as you go about selecting persons to support and to run for the helm of the party, don't select this person because they're your friend. Don't select people because they think they're entitled, or this is mine and you should not be here. Select persons who you know will work. No, select persons in terms of selling, and we must sell our story, tell our history in a meaningful way to our members, to let them know who we are, and why the Free National Movement was created, and what would cause a Free National Movement to come to power in 2017, and in less than 4 years, work tremendously to change BPL, and show the improvements when the FNM was in power, and show the disadvantages when the other party is in power, and show what we corrected. And we have the expertise in the party who are prepared to assist, but don't create impregnable groups. We must be very careful with that. I cause you to be the leader, I cause you to be this. So everybody who has something to contribute must be at the table. And everybody may not be able to be at the table. Somebody may have to be down there. But in our training, tell them why it is significant for you to be on the watchtower and keep the wood dry and the one match dry. Because you got to strike the match, light the fire when the enemy is coming.
Mm-hmm. So we're at 6 o'clock. Technically, we're done. Do you feel that you have answered the question of how the FNM can win the next election thoroughly?
I think so. There are a lot of questions who will make up our committees, and we need quality people to do that. They're disenchanted. You have to be able to bring them back. We have to line up behind our leader. He's said what we're going to do. We're going to reunite, and it's to cause people to come back. We must appreciate and respect all. And as we go through this process to select the new leadership of the party, I must put a plug in for myself. Select Ellsworth Johnson, the best choice, the people's voice, to be your chairman. I'll tell you of some of my strengths. The bond is Oscar Johnson and Sadie Dorset. I never finished high school, but I'm the recipient of a master's degree from one of the most prestigious universities in the world, the University of the West Indies, and I was about to study for my PhD. I'm a two-time president of the Bahamas Bar Association, and by the way, Brother Khalil, I want to commend him. He's now a QC for doing a phenomenal job. He's your brother. Yeah. I've worked hard in the party, and I've demonstrated that I'm unafraid of anybody that walks on tool day. I'm only afraid of the man with the soul. I'm prepared to learn, understand that it's a team. It's not I understand my role and the role, and I'm prepared to allow those persons who have the wisdom, knowledge, and understanding of the party to pour into me and to take the advice of the youth of the party and create an environment where all are participating in innovative leadership that's in the best interest of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. I want to commend all of my colleagues who are participating in this experience that we're having. Those are the guys who are watching. They have very little to say because thus far we've conducted ourselves with style and class. Continue to do just that. But I'm confident that on the 25th of February, because I'm doing the work, I want to thank all those persons who've been calling and assisting me. I'll be the next chairman of the party. But let me say this, should God put it so that that's not the case, my faith is being, and I will be able to say that my faith has been strengthened in every sense of the word. And so I'm FNM, I'm in it to win it. I support my leader. And again, I would say this, you get somebody for your point guard or your quarterback who you can trust and who has no spectrum of alternate ambitions. Thank you.
And with that, ladies and gentlemen, we will call the game today. That's the final whistle. And thank you, Ellsworth Johnson, for answering our 10 plus questions. We appreciate your time and wish you the best of luck on the 25th. And folks, we'll see you next week on the Political Review.
God bless you all. God bless you all.